Welcome, Ravi, and all our friends watching this Tech Talk. Uh, I was personally shocked to see a headline story in Indian Express. I'm sure many of you have seen it, that China is watching India. What, Ravi, what you said uh, about Chinese app, capabilities and their effort to make uh, to collect large amount of data on Indian people have come true. Let me read what is the Indian Express story said. It said an investigation by Indian Express has revealed that Zhenhua Data Information Technology Company Limited, a company with links to the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party, they are the same, is monitoring over 10,000 Indian individuals and organizations in its global database of foreign targets. The range of targets in India identified and monitored in real time by Zhenhua Data Information Technology Company Limited is sweeping in both breadth and depth, as well as data shared by the source with news organizations, including Indian Express, the Australian Financial Review, Italy's Il Foglio, and the Daily Telegraph London. It's a combined media for investigation. And you have seen the link. How do you see this report? Are we in times of big data surveillance?
Certainly, this kind of big data surveillance has been going on. All countries do it, and a lot of commercial companies do it for market access, for political campaigns. And this has been going on for quite a few years now. This is just an exaggerated version of what Cambridge Analytica was, that but I don't think there is anything sinister in it, because they're collecting all the data from open sources. And it is not just that this is the first company that is doing this. This kind of collecting information from open sources, it's called Mosaic intelligence, open source intelligence, and collating it together to build a profile of a person has been, this is what a lot of commercial companies also do for marketing and advertising. It is just that this one is on a totally different scale, a greater scale than what has been done in the past.
But, you defined it. So are we in for data, big data surveillance, or big data surveillance is another word for espionage in the old world parley?
Well, this is what information warfare, psychological warfare have been going on for a very long time, cyber warfare. And if you go back to the older days, you had what is called ELINT, SIGINT, TechInt, and SciEnt and HUMINT. That is electronics intelligence, signal intelligence, technical intelligence, human intelligence, and psychological intelligence. Now, what they are doing is, like, they're getting a lot of information about each individual, and that too from open sources. It is not as if they're collecting any secret information from anyone, because according to some reports, basically what they're doing is relationship building, relationship management, or relationship profiling. And the data that they're collecting is basically your name, date of birth, address, your family details, members of your family and their details. And a lot of just the kind of scraping through the social profiles on Facebook and other media of information that you're already given out. It is just that they're all putting it together in one place, so they can build a profile of your likes and dislikes. In fact, the political companies also do this. The political advisory companies do this, that they build a profile of each person in the country, so that they can target political campaigns to him. So this is something that has been going on for a very long time. It is just that this one is being done on a scale that is much larger than anything in the past.
Okay, this is the same as what you just now said, which Cambridge
Yes.
Analytica tried to do with the help of Facebook. Is it not?
Yeah, essentially they're collecting information from you which you have already put out on the social media, or you have put out in various other databases which are available for you publicly,
Hmm.
and they're also tracking your location data, which also is publicly available because you turn on location in your handset. You turn on location tracking, so they're able to find out where you go and what you do, and whom you talk to. So it is a lot of metadata that they have collected, and they are using that to build profiles of people. But again, as I said earlier, in the old days, most of this data would be useless. Now, because of the advances in data mining and big data analysis and analytics, you are able to make sense of a lot of data which you couldn't do in the past.
Okay.
For instance, if you looked at in the old days, there was Project Echelon, which was an espionage system of the US, where every single international telephone call, either coming into the US or going out of the US, this was in the days of satellites, used to be recorded. But then they found that they were recording so many conversations that for each hour of recording a conversation, it would take them 1 year to go through what was recorded in 1 hour to
Okay.
analyze what was there. But now with machine learning and big data analytics and deep learning, you're able to process that information much quicker,
Okay.
so that you can take action on that kind of information which you could not take earlier, because this information collection has been going on since the 1960s, when the Five Eyes project started, of the five countries, USA, Canada, UK, Australia, and New Zealand, were recording every single international phone call.
Okay, fine. So, how do you define the big data activity in this? Is it just, of course, they are collecting from the public spaces, but of course, if you have that, you can add a lot of other inputs which you want on a specific individual or organization, because there are other sources which can add to the public profiling. Is it not? So, how does this big data approach works?
See, basically, once they are able to correlate your interests and tastes, for instance, your address, your location data, what you've shopped, your shopping history, what you've bought, then what books you've read, then they get a very good idea of your tastes and your political preferences, and they know how you can be influenced and what you're next likely to buy or what you're next likely to read. This is how TikTok works. I told you its analytics engine is very good. Its artificial intelligence analytics engine is extremely good. So this is how TikTok works, and that they get to know more about their customer than the customer even knows about himself. They're able to build a profile of a person on 15 or 20,000 parameters as to what kind of music he likes, is likely what kind of television programs he likes, those kinds of things, and from that can correlate it with a person's political views, political uh, ideology, and then they are able to find out how he can be influenced in various ways, whether it is influenced to buy a product or a service, or whether it is influenced to say certain things in favor of one politician or against another politician.
But when the countries, it is between, let's say, in this case, it's between China and India, and there is, border skirmishes happening
Yes.
often these days. So I'm sure it is happening between India and Pakistan. So what does that entail in this whole thing? Because no country is interested in just the public profile, which their foreign office will have on this, all the VIPs, and their embassies will have that data,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So what is this phenomena all about?
No, certainly embassies and intelligence agencies have been making profiles of uh, uh, different public figures. They do that all the time. For instance, the Pakistanis make a profile of every single Indian general and his family and what it is like. They collect information about all of them, so they know how they can be influenced. And I'm sure the Indians are doing the same thing, that they build a profile of each senior person on the other side. So there is nothing new in this. What is here is that because of recent advances in supercomputing and in big data and data mining and big data and analytics, you're able to correlate information which is in different silos. Let us say your driving records were in one place, your purchases were in another place, your bank transactions are in a third place. Now they're able to put it all together in one, and therefore they're able to get a very detailed profile of each person, that they're able to build a psychological profile of each person. So they can know how he's going to be influenced.
So one can say this is a tip of the iceberg as far as the inquiry or profiling of important people are concerned.
Yes, certainly. Military does it, the diplomatic service does it, and mostly it is the private sector which does it for targeted advertising and marketing.
Yes, yes. So that comes to this question of cyber warfare. Are we in a cyber warfare with China, or what is the Let's start with China and India. Are we on a cyber warfare already with China, because India banned Chinese apps? Now, with the report has come that they are monitoring Indian VIPs and
certainly no. Well, in this you got to distinguish between war and military terms, where they are trying to penetrate your military systems, which they've been trying to do for the last more than 25 years now, since the 1990s. So that is, let us say, C4ISRT, which is command, control, communications and computers, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, and targeting. So those kinds of information warfare, network warfare have been going on for a very long time. Now what has happened is that in the Chinese phones, the Chinese smartphones have something like about 70% of the Indian market is Chinese smartphones. Let's say all the 4G and 5G handsets. 70, except for Samsung, all the others are either Chinese brands or they're made in China. And certainly they are all the time, they necessarily have to transmit this information about your phone back to their servers. So if you own a Chinese phone, your data is going to China. The data, which is everything on your phone, is going to China. Okay, so that is something they already have. So the question really is that people in sensitive government posts and in the army and armed forces and the intelligence services, they should not be using Chinese phones, Chinese handsets.
Okay, so let's expand this cyber warfare.
Yeah.
What is its scale across the globe? You once mentioned about Russia and US involved in a cyber warfare, or it is not open. It is a covered one which is happening. The Israelis and the Arab world. So what are the spots of cyber warfare across the world?
Yeah, in cyber warfare, there are several types. Cyber espionage is one, then sabotaging the critical information infrastructure of the other countries are several. So, in fact, this comes from an old Chinese concept which said that a real general is not one who defeats his opponent on the battlefield. A great general is one who gets the opponent to drop his sword and flee from the battlefield without fighting a war. So it is called bloodless warfare, where the onus is not that you try to get your enemy into a battle and defeat him on the battlefield. The onus is that you avoid getting him into the battlefield at all. You get him to disarm himself, and you turn your weapons, his strongest weapons, against himself. So there are a lot of these stratagems of warfare without blood. So they constitute things like economic warfare, political warfare, disinformation campaigns, where essentially you want to create internal problems for the other country. You want to create social unrest, you want to create political unrest, you want to create economic problems for the other country so that you don't actually have to go to a war and shed blood. So you try to sabotage their economy, you try to sabotage their infrastructure, the livelihoods of their people. You try to so a lot of this information warfare in the present scenario consists of disinformation campaign, the psychological warfare where you uh, try to make ridicule the political leaders on the other side, the political oppositions. You try to plant information, disinformation about them, make them appear to say what they have not really said. For instance, like you using the deep fakes, you can make a person appear to say, you can create a totally fake video of, let us say, a prime minister or a cabinet minister saying something which is never really said.
Okay,
So this
which
is
is
the
already
time.
happening. Which is already happening in the Indian.
Yeah, it is already happening. So this kind of
No, no.
psychological
Let's
warfare.
yeah.
Yeah. So what they'll try to do is, they create a stock market panic. We have seen
Yeah.
this in COVID. Like COVID is a prime example of fourth generation warfare or fifth generation warfare, because it has destroyed countries without actually going to actual battlefields, but you have destroyed the economy of a country, you have destroyed the healthcare system of a country. So these kinds of warfare which are there, which are psychological warfare, biological warfare, economic warfare, is that you get the other country to you sow dissension and political unrest in the other country, so that they voluntarily bow to your doing. In fact, it's not new. This is what Mahatma Gandhi did against the British. How India got the
Okay.
British to quit. It was
Yes.
also a totally bloodless
Yeah.
war.
Let's not go
Yeah.
into the history. Let's come to the present. What are the sports? What you call the sports of cyber war, which is happening between US and Russia. There has always been something happening.
What do you think? Sports?
The hotspots of cyber warfare.
Yeah, hotspots of cyber warfare are basically, it's going to be India, China, Taiwan, China, Korea, China, Japan, China, US. These are main ones, and China is the world leader in non-conventional warfare, revolution in military affairs, fourth generation warfare, fifth generation warfare. So China is the world leaders in all of these.
Okay. So what about India? India has the capability to handle this situation?
Well, in terms of you have the National Technical Research Organization, which is supposed to be handling tech, which is technical intelligence and cyber security issues. So certainly, I think there would be the capability, but I don't know much about it. What the Indian capabilities are.
Okay.
But
That
this
comes
is something that all countries have been doing for a while.
Okay. Hello. Ravi.
Yeah.
This capability in India is already available with a lot of marketing companies. They are constantly looking at the consumer behavior of people in India.
Yes.
And which means the capability is there for India to do what they want across the world, is it not?
Yes, certainly this capability would be there in the Indian private sector and maybe in the government sector, because this is not very different from what the marketing companies are doing, the market research companies are doing, where they are building the profiles of each person from the database.
Yes.
And a lot of the political advisory companies are doing this. I think if you look at the BJP campaign, they have been doing this in a very sophisticated way, where they're able to know what type of political campaign will appeal to a potential voter to vote for the BJP.
Okay. Okay. So, but but how different it is, from what is happening across the border.
No, this has been going on in all the countries. It's basically this kind of deep psychological profiling and of big data is being done in the US, China, Israel, India. It's being done all the time, where they're getting the information from open sources. So it's called open source intelligence. And in fact, you use this open source intelligence to do something called mosaic intelligence, where you're building a various mosaic of intelligence by gathering open source intelligence from different sources and getting actionable action items out of it. So certainly the capabilities ought to be there in the Indian private sector, but it is there in certainly there in the US, in the US commercial sector, as well as in the US military sector.
So the profiling part of it is applicable across the world and
Yes.
also in India. So
Yeah.
where does this question of there is this whole halla hulla about Indian data must be within India, the servers must be kept in India. How does this fit into this system of things? Because when our data can be accessed by anybody across the world, what is the big halla hulla about keeping servers in India?
Well, basically, they want to ensure that the servers are located in India. And if you look at the G20 summit last year, at that G20 summit, there was the Japanese Prime Minister Abe and Donald Trump. They had formulated something called DFFT, Data Free Flows with Trust, and they were both strong proponents of allowing cross-border data flows. And India was one of the few countries which opposed the data free flows with trust, because India wanted to keep most of these sensitive Indian data of Indian residents should mainly be stored on servers in India and processed on servers in India. And that is because in India, the Indian kind of philosophy is that data as an individual's non-personal data, non-personally identifiable data is a community resource, a national resource, and this non-personal identifiable data should be used for the national good. Other countries have different approaches. Some countries say that an individual's data should belong only to him. In the Indian government's philosophy is that an individual's data should be used for the national good. And therefore,
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
The national good is all about fine, but technologically,
should be located in India, and processing should
any server in India can
be done totally within Indian boundaries. Yeah.
Ravi, hear me out.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, any server anywhere in the world can be hacked or accessed for if anybody wants. So what is this big thing about Indian data being in India, kept in India, and who protects those data?
Can process it and monetize it. No, otherwise the foreigners can process the data and monetize the data. So the question is, who makes money from the Indian data? Should it be the Indian companies that make money from the data of Indian residents, or should it be the foreign companies which make money from the from the data of Indian residents? So this is the big crux. So basically, it comes down to who controls the data of Indian residents, and the Modi government has been very strongly saying that the data of Indian residents should be stored only on servers located within the geographical boundary of India, and should be wholly processed in India. And then the Reserve Bank of India has guidelines for processing of financial data, again of data localization.
Okay. Okay, so we have to live with this big data times, and
Yes.
again comes to this question that there is nothing called absolute privacy like the the analog days. In the digital era, you need to live with certain kind of lack of privacy and also lack of cohabit with the system, is it not?
Yes, absolutely. For in the digital age now, there is absolutely no privacy whatsoever, and you have to ensure that you have to get into the mindset that whenever you make a phone call or send a message or buy something online or post on social media, that it's like a postcard, a postcard which anybody and everybody can see that you are writing on a postcard, and anyone in the world can read all these things.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I am
Okay. Yeah.